Hey, Sean, can you hear me? You doing your pre-check? That's what I'm doing.
Glenn, I'm just testing it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm curious as to whether you can see the presentation I've got up on the screen.
I sure can. Yeah.
What does it look like? Is it small, like up in the upper left-hand corner? Is it large? What does it look like to you?
So the upper left-hand corner I can read no problem, where it says land development code discussion. Oh, that's fine. The little one to the right is
Over
harder
here.
to read.
Harder to read, or it's behind?
I think what it's showing on the right top is your next slide.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
but the one you're on is fine.
Okay, I'm wondering if, wondering if I can get this thing to be a full. Slideshow.
Try that. Nah.
Here,
Yeah, try that one.
see all.
Nah, that's not what you want.
Let's
Try
see.
the magnifying glass. And then I think, man, if you play with that, maybe it'll let you blow it up.
Huh. Well, it's legible, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's good.
It's legible. I'm looking at some of these pictures.
I mean that's gonna be hard to read the writing on the on the plats, but
Well, there's no need to read the writing on the plats.
good.
The only
Okay.
thing you need to see there is the red shaded areas is the commercial piece.
Yeah. And if it helps too, I'm looking at the little tiny city provided laptop.
Oh, okay.
So folks at home have, the nicer typical 17-inch screens, they're probably fine.
All right, I got Dan Bennett calling me here. Let me get
Okay.
him. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Glenn.
Check. Hello, can anyone hear me?
I hear you. I got my video off right now, but I can hear you fine.
How do I sound with the earphones in? Is it okay?
Yes, you sound fine.
Okay, much clearer on this than Skype.
Yeah, this is better.
Everyone always tells me I sound like I'm in a tunnel when I'm in Skype with earphones.
No, you're coming through clear.
Glenn, since you already have yours on the screen, did you want to go first? Guess he walked away.
I think so. He said somebody called him or something. He stepped out about 3 minutes ago.
Hey, Ron, I'm here. It's Margaret. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello. I was trying to find my unmute button. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to give it a few minutes and I'll come back.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm here now, Ron.
Okay. Since yours is already on the screen, did you want to do yours first?
No, you go first. Yours is the main event today. I was just doing a test run to make sure I knew how to get this thing to come up properly. I think I've got it. Am I doing anything differently than what you would do, Ron, as far as the size of the screen committed to the presentation?
What I'm seeing is not the presentation slide, but from yours, but you know, I see.
Well,
I see what I would like when I with my two monitors. I can see my presentation slide, then I kind of see this particular one.
So yeah, I've got two monitors too, and I got the full. It's a full screen presentation on the left monitor, and it's all the nuts and bolts in your image and my image and everybody else's image on the screen on the right. You got your mute on right now, so I couldn't hear anything. There you go.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's whatever you want. What I think I would have to, you would have to stop sharing, and then I can share my screen. Maybe Jonathan or Dylan can tell me if I'm wrong.
Dylan won't be doing much as far as I know, but Jonathan's going to be helping us if we have any problems. Let's see here. Let me get this thing closed up here.
I think you can hit, I think, stop sharing. I think it's up at the top, but.
Oh, okay. Let me,
It might be in the bottom middle.
That's where share screen is.
I just don't have a full screen at all right now. I need to figure out how to get my full screen back again.
I believe, Glenn, when I hit share screen, it says it will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? So
Yeah,
I think
I don't want to be sharing my screen if I can get clean of that first. Show screen video. Size window. Show. Mute. Stop video. Self mute my audio. Well, I don't need to stop. That's my own video. That's different. Okay. Let me open that up one more time and see if I can do it a different way.
Well, I can just override it, I think, since I'm hosting the meeting.
Right. But can you just make mine disappear?
We can try.
Over here. I don't know how much you can see of what I'm doing.
Hi, Tom.
There's Tom. Tom
There's
is working outdoors in an outdoor eating area, isn't that?
That's right.
friendly?
Hi, Don, Ron.
Hey,
Glenn,
Tom. How are you doing, Tom?
Fine. How are you gentlemen today?
Doing okay. I believe, Glenn, if I hit stop this message I have, it will stop sharing your screen.
Okay. Now
So I'm
I'm
gonna hit this.
downloading. Yeah, I'm downloading my presentation from the S drive, I guess it is. And if I lose my VPN connection, then I won't be able to download that presentation. So I'd like to download it and have it available, I guess. Now, if I can just minimize the screen, maybe like that. And can you jump in and show your presentation?
I think so, but I'm going to give it a try. Hold on.
All right. Hey guys, I'm on.
Hey,
Councilor
Hello, Councilmember Barnett.
Okay, good. Good to see you guys.
good to see
Good
you.
to see you.
you too.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey Tom.
Hi, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good. Doing good.
We're still trying to figure out some of the technical.
Yeah,
Things
I
here.
see. I hear you. No problem. There you go.
I was able to do this the other day. Now I can't get it over here.
All right. I'm gonna be on mute, but I'm
Okay.
So is everybody on here except for Neil?
Neil advised me about a half hour ago that he was going to have to participate by phone. So he's
Okay,
just the video aspect of it, but he'll get at least the audio.
okay.
I see
Right.
his phone showing up at the bottom of the participant list, so he may be
Oh,
on.
okay. Yeah, he's just on. Okay, great. Hey, Neil, can you hear us? Oh, well. Do we assume that he can hear us?
How's it on the Riverwalk there today, Margaret?
What now?
How's it on the Riverwalk today?
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Hey, Miss Margaret.
Hey,
How are you?
are we ready to get going here? I've got 3:32.
Okay.
We're trying to get some.
I'm hoping that Neil is listening, but maybe just can't get his unmute button working. I'll check and make sure he isn't texting me with something. He's got issues.
Okay, yeah, let me check.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, well, since we see his him at the bottom of the page and it's past 3:30, you want to be texting him to make sure he's on?
Can,
Maybe that's
right
the
now.
thing to do, and I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order of the Land Development Code Ad Hoc Committee. And the first thing I was gonna do was try to see about setting a different time for us to meet rather than 3:30 on a Friday. But let's wait until we can get Neil activated here
Right.
to know exactly what we're doing, because he's the one that brought it up. But Clifford, is there another time? We'll deal with it later, but just be thinking about that, okay?
Okay.
Maybe on a Friday, but just earlier in the day.
Okay.
So at this point, I guess I will turn it over to Glenn. He's with Neil. He's trying to get hold of Neil.
Yeah, no, Ron
Who's
said,
going first? Did I hear you say Ron was going to go first?
Ron just lost his internet connection, but are you able to work to get it back on again, or is there something more serious? Huh. Well, do you want me to proceed with the piece that I was going to cover later, and then you can figure out how to join in?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can
Good.
hear you.
There's
Okay.
Neil.
All right, keep working on it, okay? You've seen my presentation, so it's nothing new to you. All right, thanks.
Okay, well, now let's just hold up for a second. Neil can hear us and we can hear him. So let's deal with the time issue before we get to the end of this and we run out of time or something.
Yeah.
It would be better, I agree, to meet earlier on a Friday. So, you know, what are y'all thinking?
Okay.
Clifford, do you have things that you have to do every Friday, or is it
Not every Friday, but I can adjust. So if we say Friday morning, that's fine. I can adjust.
I have a standing thing from 10:30 to 12 on Friday, pretty
Okay.
much every
How's it?
Friday. But how about if we did it at 1?
That would be super from the standpoint of staff. One reason why I bring that up, Margaret, is because with the input that we receive from you all, if we have a meeting at 1 o'clock and we're done by 2 or 2:30 or whatever, and we need to make adjustments to our presentation, that gives us a few more hours on the Friday to make those adjustments in preparation for the Monday morning briefing. So that was very good for staff.
So earlier would be, seems like better. This is kind of pushing it to wait till 3:30.
Yeah, and that's my fault. My fault. I've been in this 3:30 mode because we've got all of my briefings of my leadership team and planning. We meet at 3:30 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as necessary. And we also have all the work sessions of the planning commission are at 3:30. So I had this 3:30 thing in my brain and I let it get carried away. So
One's fine with me.
o'clock would be perfect if that's okay with Neil and everybody else.
One, that'll be fine. Let's go Friday
Okay,
morning.
let's try that for a while and see. So we'll I think, did I see Tracy's on here? And we'll aim next time for 1 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good.
I don't think we need to vote on that. It's just a consensus of what time we're going to meet. So now, once again, I'll turn it over to Glenn to tell us what we're going to do next.
Yeah, now I've got to figure out how to get my presentation up on the screen. As you know, the primary focus of today's meeting is to talk about Article 7, which has quite a few, I think, interesting changes to the way in which City Council, the Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Subdivision Review Board, Historic Preservation Commission, all those things are going to be talked about by Ron. So we're going to hold off on that. What I was going to bring to the table.
I'm in.
Oh, your background, have you got your screen to share?
I have to pull that back up, but go ahead. Just go ahead and finish. I would go ahead and finish yours.
I've got to figure out how I had it up on the screen before. I've got to figure out how to get it back.
He hasn't started it, Ron.
Yeah.
Glenn, it's on my screen.
I
This
gotcha.
is Tom. I
Got
can
it
see
on screen?
your PowerPoint.
All right, so if I go to slideshow and then from the beginning, does that work, everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All
This
right.
there is working.
Let me, if that's okay with Ron, I'll just run through this. This should be a shorter discussion than Ron's. Is that okay?
Sure,
Okay.
sure, whatever y'all figure out.
All right, here we go. As you all know, the commercial district mixed use provision of our land development code has not exactly worked the way it was intended. So the presentation today was to kind of walk through how it's not working as it was intended and what might be some simple fixes to get it working as it was intended. So on that basis, I'll proceed. Just a real quick overview here. What's the purpose of a mixed use development? It's to allow for a balanced, and balanced is key. That I'll come back to that word balanced. Mix of office, commercial, residential uses in close proximity to increase convenience to residents and reduce number of shopping and commuting trips. So it's really about convenience and trying to grow our city without having additional excessive traffic congestion. This particular use, called a commercial district mixed use, was put in place back in the early 2000s as a means of allowing multifamily residential units, usually apartments, to occur within our commercial districts. In particular, the community business district, the office institutional 1 district, and the regional business district were identified as 3 commercial districts that would be suitable to have some residential development in them to promote mixed use development. And ultimately, the objective was to create some balanced mixed use developments within our city. The unintended consequences, as it has evolved over the last, well, I guess almost 18, probably 16 to 18 years, is that it didn't catch on initially. People didn't see the merits of it, I guess, until it was discovered that you could do this kind of multifamily residential development and not have to provide for any open space, because we don't require open space in our commercial district development. So once that was grasped onto in recent years, we started getting all these developments that were, instead of some residential in a commercial development, we were getting like 99% intense multifamily development with a little tiny commercial use just to satisfy the standard that it's mixed use development. The other unintended consequences of this is that because there's no open space requirements associated with these developments, it creates excessive removal of trees and clear cutting of sites because of the extent of the building footprints and the parking necessary to serve those larger buildings. It also results in a lot of excessive impervious surface areas on rooftops and parking areas that also creates some problems with our stormwater and our flooding. And it all comes down to that open space, lack of an open space requirement. In our other multifamily districts, we currently require 35% open space. That's on top of our buffers, on top of our tree planting islands in our parking lots, and our other landscape and buffering requirements. So there's a huge difference. And this is a big incentive to developers to want to employ this, what I would consider to be a loophole. And we get these unintended consequences that we really are not in favor of, to tell you the truth. But we have this provision that permits it. So now what I want to do is very quickly just show examples of these commercial district mixed use developments in our city and show you the way they look. This is one that, these pictures I just took yesterday, this is one that's being developed off Park Avenue, between Park Avenue and Oleander. And you can see that it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, about 7 buildings around the central travelway there. And then they have this little outbuilding up by Park Avenue that satisfies the commercial use requirement in order to not have any open space. And you can see in the picture that it pretty much clears the site of any trees with the exception of a few around the perimeter. And the other thing to keep in mind in all of these site plans is that the commercial development, I think entirely is always going to be either just a one-story building like you see here with this little building here, or it's just commercial development on one floor, on the ground floor in a small part of a building, whereas the balance of the development can be 3, 4, 5 stories tall in residential development, while the commercial development is invariably just one story. Here's another one you may know very well, Car Station Lofts, right there by where the railroad tracks cross Carr Avenue, south of Market Street. That one is 98% residential, has the 139 apartments. I just got a note from Christine to maximize my presentation. Unfortunately, I'm working with 2 screens, so I've got a full presentation on my left screen and a smaller one on my right. Everybody's looking at a smaller presentation, huh? I'm not sure how to make it large. We went through this before.
Yeah, we have the 2, or I anyway have both. I have a little bit larger with the picture.
Yeah.
In the small.
Glenn, I think it's because you're using the presenter mode. So it's for the presenter to see what's coming up as opposed to a mode that would just simply show slideshow.
Yeah, I've got 2 screens, so I've got presenter mode on the right, and I've got the big presentation full body screen on my left. That's the problem.
That's why we're seeing smaller one. If you just went to slideshow without presenter mode, it will maximize it.
Is that any better? Now I've got all the image in my screen.
There you go.
That's better.
I'm showing all your beautiful faces on the left-hand side. Do we need to have those beautiful faces on the screen? Is Jonathan listening?
You can go to speaker view rather than gallery view and get rid of the Brady Bunch.
There you go. I got rid of mine.
So you can do that yourself, Clifford?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I just pushed the minus button and I got rid of all of them, everybody.
Thanks for the suggestion, Christine. So is everybody good to go now? We'll continue?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this one here that you see now is Belmead. Down, it's a satellite annexation, as I understand it, down off Carolina Beach Road. And Tom, I think when you first came to Wilmington, didn't you briefly reside there before you got there?
Yep, that was my first place of residence.
Now, when I visited there yesterday, can everybody see the picture in the lower right-hand corner?
Yes.
Yes.
That is their leasing center. And our code doesn't really say that you can count a leasing center as commercial space. And when you look there, there's no signage there except for the leasing space, and there's no identifiable business that I could see, at least from signage, at that location. Do you know any differently, Tom?
No, you have a exercise room on the left side and then a sort of cafe / gang meeting room, but it's just open to the tenants. It's not an ongoing business. It's part of the lease center, really.
Yeah, we may need to get zoning enforcement to look into that, because it just didn't seem like it's meeting even the spirit of the code, much less the intent. So moving on, I think you're probably familiar with the cottages at College Acres. This is a 45-unit development. And you can see the one little single building there in the upper left-hand corner was the meeting the commercial requirement. This one is called the Flats at Maine. At least sometimes the names in our ProTrack system were the names that were used when it came through the review process, and sometimes they change those names for marketing purposes. I think this one kept its name, but I'm not sure. This one, in the picture there, they have a salon in the corner of the one building there. That salon is closed obviously now because it's that kind of a personal contact service, but it's just the first floor in the corner. This one has 119 apartments at 99%. This is the percentage of the development by square footage of building construction. So it's 99% square footage in residential for support rooms for residential. Everybody knows Arboretum West, the Maynard family tribute companies. This one's actually one of the better developments because they actually have two decent commercial structures up close to military cutoff. They do have 360 apartments there, and it still winds up being almost 96% residential, even with the two decent commercial buildings up by the street. And this picture here shows the building on the right there.
Need me?
Part of what Arboretum West was approved, though, was supposedly it was like this horizontal mixed use because it's right up behind Roses and whatever else is over there.
Is that the one closest to Roses, or is that, I think the one that used to be, what was it called?
It used to be Will Estates.
Real Estates. That's not this one that was around. That was the other one.
No, it's the other one. This one's at Station Road, and this one's right across from the avenue.
The station.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if anybody can see me moving the arrow along the screen there.
No.
Okay, forget that.
Oh, yeah, now I can.
Oh, here or over here?
There.
Yeah, we can see it.
Station Road over here.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. This one is the new one on 17th Street, north of the hospital, adjoining the country club. In the review process, it was simply called 17th Street Mixed Use. I'm sure it will have some other name. And they begin marketing the spaces. They have a small commercial area identified, I believe, and these are approximations. I looked at the floor plans of the site plan, but a lot of the site, the internal design of the buildings themselves were kind of vague in places. So this is an estimation as to what they've committed to a commercial use there. This is 17th Street along here. This is the country club back here. But you can see the interesting thing about this one is if you look at the scope of the building and you look at the amount of parking all the way around the building, then you get a better understanding of why the site was clear cut, because there's really no opportunity to create spaces for clusters of trees when you're basically wall to wall, either buildings or parking areas. There's some tree saving along this side. There's some tree saving along here where there's some trees. There's a little bit of tree saving down here and up here. But there were no trees along the road here, and there were no trees back here closest to the fence to the country club. So right now, when you look at the picture there shown on the screen, you can actually look out the picture taken from about here. You can look right back this way. So again, that's almost 99% residential. This is a new one that is on Oleander Drive. I believe there was a bowling alley there and a large parking area. It's opposite, is it Englewood? The road that goes from Greenville Loop Road, and it's right opposite. We're going to have a traffic signal at new traffic signal at this location. And again, this is a really large
movie theater.
Yes.
Movie theater. Thank you. So that was back here with quite a large parking lot in front of the movie theater. This one, as you can see, has 223 apartments and it's got a little tiny sliver here of commercial right at that bend in the building that's closest to Oleander Drive. So this is really an extreme example of the flea on the tail of the dog wagging the dog as far as satisfying the technical aspect of the provision, but not really meeting the spirit. So that's it as far as kind of a quick overview of the different sites around town. I've only got about 3 slides left. This one just talks very briefly about what our objectives would be in fixing the loophole. One would be to meet the original purpose of balanced mixed-use development. The second would be to provide for some open space requirement. The third would be to reduce extensive clear cutting. And fourth would be to reduce extensive impervious surface areas, which are both related to the requirement for open space. The actual amendment itself would contain 4 basic changes. Those 4 basic changes would be that we would finally specify some minimum and maximum percentages for residential and commercial development. We would establish some minimum amount of open space, hopefully consistent with what you'd find in a multifamily development. We would, for the first time, specify a maximum residential density, and still an attractive one, but we would at least establish some sort of a threshold. And lastly, we would prohibit single-story development, so we don't wind up with these little outbuildings, 1 story, just to satisfy the minimum. Discussion, and I have two food for thought statements to conclude. You know, kind of have whatever your thoughts might be after this. How will the post-pandemic influences change the demand for the types of commercial services needed close at hand? We know that groceries have become very popular, not so much indoor dining, for example, and retail is shifting in-person shopping to a lot of online shopping, but there's still a need for some types of retail and some offices. And then secondly, regardless of changes in the marketplace, do we still need to address the open space, clear cutting, and impervious surface issues? So that's what I would put in front of you and ask for your thoughts. Also your thoughts as to whether you feel this should be brought forward ahead of the bulk of the LDC, or whether we should just bring this forward as part of the rest of the LDC, and what your thoughts are.
Guys, Clifford and Neil, you all want to chime in? I have my own thoughts, but I'll wait to see what you say.
I'll go first.
Okay, I'll go second.
Okay, Neil?
I've been talking to Glenn about this already, so I'm this just feels like the last few I've seen, the one over by the college I drove by, the one on 17th. I mean, I'm just embarrassed about it, to be honest with you. And when I talk to the public about it, they just shake their head. They're like, to me, it needs to come right away. I mean, if it's something that's this clear and this glaring, we don't need to wait for 4 or 5 more projects to get under the, just get under the wire before we make the change. I don't, Glenn, I'm a little concerned because I don't want to make it so. I remember, we did and it was admittedly not the same, but we did that. I forget what we called it, but like a garden, what would we call it, Glenn? It was like
Cottage courts.
What was it?
Cottage courts.
Yeah, and we made it where it just really, you can't do it feasibly right now in our marketplace. Pretty much, it's a zoning that exists but can't make work. So I guess what I was looking at your 4 goals before you came up, I guess 3 slides ago. I don't know if there's some way to kind of come up with you meet 3 of them, or I guess I still want to encourage mixed, but I want, I want to get away from the clear cutting, and I want to get away from so much pervious. And I think I talked to you, is if they go to so many units, if it's so big, you gotta, I don't know how you encourage your what do you call it, vertical parking, decks and all that, but they're very expensive. So I don't know the economics of it, is what I'm getting at, but what they're doing is just, you might as well just call it multifamily. It's just a little, they found a loophole and they're going to run through it until we slow it down. And, some places that may work. I mean, that you use that one with the movie theater, they didn't have any trees anyway. But still, the spirit of the whole ordinance is to have some mix there. And frankly, your comments about, how long people are affected by COVID once it's over, I don't know the answer to that, but I would have to assume that having stuff near your house is better. It was better before, it'll even be better now, in the future. So, I have strong feelings about it because it's just so glaring in both in the harm they're doing to the amount of trees. And this on 17th Street, it was not a bunch of scrub pines like over at the Cameron thing. These were big trees, big serious trees, a forest. And then you have, it's just a culmination of everything about them, is negative, and we're not getting the goal of mixed out of it. So I'd like to see it, us deal with it sooner than later. But I also would, I don't know how you do it, but I don't want it to be where we make, I want us to work with the economics of it, which I don't understand, you may not either, so it didn't just go away, if that makes any sense. So if you say, you got to have a football field of open space, they say, well, we can't do it. Land's too expensive. I don't know. I'm just making it up on the fly. But that's my 3 cents, 10 cents, whatever.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hey, Clifford, you want to chime in?
Sure, I do. When I looked at your presentation and listened to the presentation, obviously there's this loophole that I think, and I agree with you, Neil, that we definitely need to fix. We need to straighten it out. Especially when I look at some of the numbers, like 98%, 99%, 95%. So obviously, they were just using that loophole, and we're losing a lot of open space, and we're losing a lot of trees. Now, on the other hand, I agree with you too, Neil, in the sense that we don't know whether or not it's fair to the persons that building the building. Are they making enough money? But we definitely need that open space. And I agree with you that we probably need to address it now before we get other builders and people, doing projects, and then we throw it up a little later. So I think it's best to go on and address it sooner than later. I agree with you on that. And then I guess my last thought is, realistically, how is it affecting the bottom line? Because, one of the challenges I would keep hearing on the board is, people that buy these properties, they want to make money on it. And once you buy it, you can't kind of like determine how they build it. But we want to provide housing for as many people as we can. But on the other hand, we don't want to cut down all the trees and not have that open space. So I think we need to fix the loophole. I don't know if that means that we're saying they have to do a certain percentage, or a larger percent. But then the other thing is, suppose you do have someone who's trying to build a stadium or something like that, but they be still stuck to that. So,
Okay, are you finished?
Yes,
it's hard
ma'am.
to
I'm
tell.
done. I am done.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just chime in to agree with what they've said. I think it's very important to go ahead and bring this forward right now. Let's not wait on this, because I agree with Neil. It just looks terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, just to the common eye,
Right.
to the general person. I mean, it just looks ridiculous, and no wonder people complain to us about cutting down trees. I think the bottom line, these guys are smart, and they can maybe go up another floor or do something like that, rather than spreading out. Sure, it's probably cheaper to build it. But I'm dismayed in the one that has this sea of parking around it on the street. I like the car lofts. I thought a lot of their parking was more internalized. No, is that it? No, that's 17th Street.
Yeah, the car station loss, let's see, that's it. That one, they did keep the parking to the inside, to the inside of the property and along the railroad tracks here to some extent.
Right. And we had that discussion when Cindy came before us about that. And to me, that is better. I thought we're trying to get away from this sea of parking that you see from the street. But that's another issue. But that ties into this, that we need more pervious surfaces. And so I think we really need to work towards that. And I know we have some regulations, but that needs to be stronger. And I forget what your other goals were, but about clear cutting and all. I think that one on Oleander, where the movie theater was, didn't they take the lot, that property next door where the rest home was? And that was heavily wooded.
Yeah, I think they took, you're referring to over here. This is the side toward the, is it Tidal Creek Co-op that sits over here? And
No, it was on the opposite side from Tidal Creek.
Over on this side.
Mm-hmm.
You're correct.
There was a big lot and it was like a rest home or something like that. And that was a heavily wooded, very green sort of lot. And so apparently they've taken all that out. I'm a little dismayed to see how much they've built up this land here. Maybe the perspective is not right or something.
That's correct. I took that picture about 2 hours ago, and I was surprised too by the elevation that they're creating there with the fill material that they're bringing in.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be a drainage problem for anybody around them. I mean, I'm no engineer, but anyway, those are very specific things. Back to your general thing. What I'm hearing is that, we ought to go ahead and deal with this. And I think it probably should be a percentage. I don't know if 20% commercial to 80. I mean, I don't know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm sure that you all are very familiar with other places that have done this kind of thing. And, when there are trees there, they ought to have to try to save some of those, whether it's, in the, I don't know, in a parking lot or their open space or whatever it is. But this idea that you can just clear cut something in an urban area is absurd. So, I think we're all on the same page here.
Okay.
Clifford, or unless you and Neil think we're not.
No, I think we're actually on the same page. I guess one question I wanted to ask was, when did we notice the loophole? When did we figure that out? Was that like 5 projects ago, or?
I would say it's really come to fruition in the last 4 years, probably.
Okay.
I think it was slow to be caught on to for the longest time, and then coming out of the Great Recession, we started seeing some of these, and then people really took on and saw the advantages of not having to have open space.
Okay. All right.
I told Glenn, I'm never sure, but I thought this was a 7-0 kind of thing. This is just a slam dunk. I mean,
yeah,
I agree.
I can't do it, but
I agree.
I think everyone. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Neil.
I'm just saying the particulars, they can be probably, I don't know what they look like exactly, but I know the spirit of it and what we're seeing happen needs to stop.
Right.
So I'd like to see it soon.
And you know what? These guys know how to make money. They'll be able to do it. We did do that one thing, those little cottages that you had to park away and schlep your stuff over to your house somewhere else. That never made it because there wasn't enough, I don't know, anyway, that didn't make it. So sometimes we don't do the right thing, but I'm with Neil. I think everybody's going to jump on this and think, how can you not? So let's full steam ahead on this.
Can I ask a question? Do you have any suggestions as council members, recommendations to staff as to how we would bring this forward? Would this be, what would be our steps that you think would be the best way to go if we want to bring this forward more quickly than the rest of the land development code? Or are you looking for us to?
Would this fit into a text amendment?
Yes, that's what it is.
Well, we've certainly done that you know, we've sort of been bullied into that a couple of times for other things. So why don't we do that? That way we could deal with it pretty quickly.
Okay.
I don't know. What do y'all think?
I'd agree. And I would, you know, grab, I don't know, Ron, somebody sit down with somebody that's kind of got, I don't know, maybe martyred or something. Just kind of say, sometimes I think it becomes so many cooks, and it just like, and there's always somebody unhappy with it. Whereas if you like talk to somebody, just a couple people that relay to the builder group, I don't know, just stand.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit, and so it's hard to hear you. Are you saying you want them to talk with the developer? We can only hear about every other word.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm closest to home as I've ever been. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead, Margaret.
Okay, we can't hear you, Neil. Say it again, what you were saying.
Yeah, try again, Neil. Let's see if we can get it.
Move on.
Okay. All right. And Glenn, what else do you need? I mean, I'd like to see a pretty healthy percentage, you know, let's not say, you know, 10%, you know. There's got to be a percentage of green space, commercial, and residential. And you know, I think you all can look elsewhere and see what other municipalities have done.
Okay.
And do you need anything else on this from us?
I don't think so. I think we've got your sentiment. That's the most important thing, that we have a sense of whether you would support something like this or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that's concludes our conversation on this, we can move on to our, really the main event this afternoon was to be the discussion of Article 7.
Okay.
So I'll take mine down, or Ron, you're the host of the meeting, so you can probably shut me down.
Let me see if I can get this one to show on my end.
I just shut my own down, I think.
Okay, what do you see?
Article 7.
It's right. It says Land Development Code Article 7.
All right. Do you see the two?
No, we see one. We
Full
see
screen?
one. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Because I see both, so I'm not sure exactly what you see on your screen.
Yeah. We can see the one that you're presenting now, and you'll probably see the one that's going to come up next. So we're good.
All right. Do you see the box when it's raising in up and down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure.
It's tiny little print, but we see
Yes.
it.
Yes. I'm hoping that the box will pull out. That's what the intent of it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But today we are here to talk about Article 7, administrative provisions. What we want to do is try to highlight, like we have in the other articles, what is changing and not changing. This is not intended to be a very detailed, you know, line by line, paragraph by paragraph presentation. It's broken down to 5 divisions. The first one is general procedures. The second one will be specific procedures. The third division is boards and commissions. The fourth division is nonconforming uses and vested rights. And the fifth is administration, violations, and enforcement. Very riveting topics of discussion, I'm sure. And then unfortunately on this one, we don't, the code won't have as many illustrations and diagrams and those kind of things as we had other parts of the code, but we will have flow charts and tables, hopefully to offset some of that, to make it user-friendly and that kind of thing, which I'll go into a little bit of detail on. Okay. As with the other presentations, we are using the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan as the foundation for this article. We also pulled in this case, the Blueprint Report recommendations. You may not be able to see the bullets on the bottom hand. The Blueprint, if you recall, was the code audit that we had done back in 2015. But it talks about using flow charts to illustrate various procedures, a table noting reviews and necessary approvals, and then time frames and determination of surety amounts And so far, we have brought in those aspects of the blueprint report into this particular article. So I wanted to make sure we were highlighting that.
Okay.
All right. All right. So what is changing? Right at the beginning of the article, we will have a summary of review authority chart. And I don't know if you can see the chart here, but what it breaks down is the various types of processes that we have. It could be a variance process. It could be a special use permit process. It could be a rezoning, a land development code, text amendment, whatever it is. So the left-hand corner, or the left-hand column is the type of process. In the middle, you will see review bodies. So that's our Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Historic Preservation Commission, our Technical Review Committee, what we're calling now a Design Adjustment Committee, and City Council. And what role does that particular review body have? And then we will also have public notice requirements. So this chart is kind of just a real quick summary at the beginning of this article. Somebody can look at it, whether it's staff, whether it's developer or citizen, say, okay, this type of hearing we have here, here are the steps. Just kind of a real quick overall, quick blush. So just using a conditional zoning district map as an example, can you see the cursor at all? So I don't know what you see and can't see.
I see it.
You
I see
see?
it. Yeah, we
All
see
right,
it.
so conditional zoning district rezoning is, its zoning map amendment is the second row.
Right.
Conditional is the second one under that. All right, so city official, that would be city staff. We would review and make a recommendation. The Planning Commission reviews and makes a recommendation. And then City Council, in a public hearing process, and I just noticed this typo, would make a legislative hearing decision on this after following the Planning Commission and city staff recommendation.
Okay.
It would also require, you see, your neighborhood meeting is required in that particular column. So that's kind of what the purpose of this summary chart is.
Okay, quick question. With
Yes,
that
sir.
summary chart, is there a key? Like, for example, if I'm
Yes,
a local
it is.
person, you pick it up. Okay.
It is. It's
It's
actually was just too much to show on this one page, but
Okay.
it is a key.
Okay, cool.
Very next page. You actually see the top, there's a key at the top. It says R is review, RR is review and recommendation, A is appeal, P is public hearing. But we also have what I'm going to call you can't see these numbers very, very well. There's like a subscript numbers from these public notice requirements.
Right.
That goes into the detail of the notice requirements for each one of those types of cases. So whether it's the 300-foot buffer notice requirement we do, if it's just adjoining property owners, do we post a sign, do we not post a sign, that's where the details get on this.
Okay.
I like charts. It's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good chart. Good.
This one would probably scratching your head a little bit on why we would even have a completeness review. Why would we not have a completeness review already in our code? But what we're trying to do is include a completeness review that applies to all types of permits that come into the city. One that's just, whether it's a site plan, a zoning permit, certificate of appropriateness for the Historic Preservation Commission, a rezoning application, whatever kind of it is, just set parameters on what that completeness review includes. And in this case, we do require that the application fee is part of that completeness review. So if you submit an application and there's not an application fee as part of it, then it's not a complete application. And yes, we do get that question, and yes, that does happen more often than you would think. We also have guidance for incomplete applications, and we also would have some language in there that if after 20 days of staff not hearing anything from the applicant, then the application is considered withdrawn. So we've told you.
What is that time frame now, if any?
There is nothing. So if you submitted for, let's say, the Planning Commission agenda for July this year, today, and you had an incomplete application, we just cannot schedule you for that meeting until you actually meet all the requirements. So we're actually now want to set some parameters, say, hey, we're reviewing this. We want to take your application seriously. You need to take it seriously as well.
So they have like 20 days to make sure that it's right.
Right.
Once they turn it in.
Yes, sir. We would identify, here are 3 things that you need to do to make sure you have a complete application. And then after 20, if we don't hear back from the applicant after 20 days, then we would consider that application withdrawn.
But if they had like 3 things they needed to do and they did one, then the 20 days starts over again for the second thing.
If you want us to close that loop, we can close that loop.
Well, no, it just says
No, in theory,
would
yes,
they-
you're right.
after inaction.
Right. In
So-
theory, you're correct. But at the end of the day, we can't move forward until they comply.
Right. But if you hear from them within 20 days, that basically means to say that I'm telling you, I still wanted it to be considered. I'm working on A, B, and C that you gave me. It wouldn't be thrown out just because they didn't get it back in 20 days, or would it?
It wouldn't be thrown out necessarily as written, but what we could not do is process it until we get a complete application.
Okay, I think
makes
that
sense.
needs a
It
little
makes sense.
parsing there
Well-
in the verbiage.
Okay, we'll look
Yeah,
at
look,
the language. Obviously, it's not something we'll be able to address before Monday morning's council agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes,
may I make a comment on this? This is Tom Oten.
please, please.
The completeness review is a critical step that many organizations use. And what we're finding, Mayor Saffo and I have met with a number of developers who complain that city staff are not moving their projects along. And so I've gone in and protract and really counted the days, and there's a big gap. Our staff invests a lot of time in reviewing site plans and other submittals, and we won't hear anything for 6 months. And then you guys are here from the public, well, we've had our plans into the city since blah, blah, blah. And that's happening quite often. And so the completeness review is essential first and foremost, because what we're doing today is taking incomplete information, kind of doing a lot of the work for them, and it just drags on. But at the end of the day, the complaint is the city staff not processing their submissions quickly enough.
Right, I've heard that. And then when you really look at it, it's their engineer or something that something hasn't gotten done. I just think we got to work on that last one there to make sure we're saying what we really want to say.
Sure, we'll be glad to look at that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you're saying after the city recognizes your application, if there anything needed within 20 days, if we don't hear from you, it's considered withdrawn. Is that what you're saying though? In that?
That is not what it currently would read, but certainly we're going to look and see if we can clean that and clarify it a little better.
Okay.
And it won't
Good
be
deal.
before Monday morning.
Sure.
No problem. No
So
problem.
Yeah.
to this meeting, it's great feedback. I appreciate it.
Okay.
And it may be also the length of time may need to be, that's a dramatic shift, but we do need to define it. So whether it's 20 days, my thought is it may be longer before it's deemed inactive. That could be a process. And we would notify, and when I discussed it with Glenn, it was even the thought would be you would notify a submitter that time's running out and their application would be deemed inactive.
Yeah.
Therefore,
Right.
I think it should happen with some notice as opposed to just time lapsing.
Right. No, the
I can
language
see
is there for that.
Yeah, I could see the initial notice would be like 30 days, and then they would be put on notice that at the end of the overall 45 days, they got to start over or whatever.
This,
Right.
the checklist bullet, or the bullet just before this one, it says establish criteria for incomplete applications. Part of that outlines that the applicant will be notified. It's put in writing. It's outlined what the next steps are, that kind of thing. So I just didn't go into a lot of detail. On
Okay.
the presentation.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Ron,
Yes.
can you hear me now?
Yes. Is that
Yes.
Neil?
Yeah. I mean, one suggestion would be make it divisible by 7. I mean, just because that's just the way people function. When you grab a calendar, you go ding to ding to ding to each week. Make it 21. I mean, I don't know where 20 came. It's just people in my experience working. You got 3 weeks, or 20. That's just one suggestion.
Sure.
The other part was sounded like you were talking about in order to be heard at a particular meeting. Like if they're saying we want to get approved by July.
I was
I thought
using
that-
that example.
I thought that was what you were saying. Like in other words, you're gonna have to move to the next meeting if you let this time expire. Is that?
That is
what you were-
correct. That is correct.
Okay.
So I was using July as an example. If someone was to submit by the deadline for the July Planning Commission meeting, we would go through the completeness review for their application. If they were substandard or ultimately their application was deemed incomplete, we would identify what they were missing, if you will. And if they don't get it to us, then they don't certainly aren't heard at that meeting.
Well, so
Right,
then
they moved to the
it's
next.
not yeah, it's not withdrawn then. It's just delayed.
Correct.
So if it's delayed, that means they can come back once they get the correct information.
Right, but if we hear nothing,
Okay.
if we hear nothing, then it is considered incomplete. But again, we'll go back and look at that language, shore it up to say what we intended to say.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
Good deal. Moving on.
Appreciate the feedback on that.
Thank you.
All right. You probably have heard us throw around 160D a few times. If not us, you've heard John Joy or Sean or someone say it. That is the changing legislation where they combine pretty much all the city land use regulations with the county land use regulations, move ours from 160A, the counties from 153A, and put them in one location. So we're looking at 160D as we go through this ordinance as well. Two things I wanted to highlight here. The first one is permit choice. And this is a general statute language that allows an applicant to pick which standards apply to the development should the rules change between the time that they make an application for a decision and the time between that time they submit an application and the time that a development rule may change. So we're reviewing a site plan. They submit for a site plan, and then there's a text amendment, and it changes. They can say, "Okay, I like the new text amendment, or I want to stay with the old one." That works in, and it makes sense. I mean, it works in favor of the applicant. But there's also a piece in that I feel like I wanted to highlight that I don't know a lot of developers and certainly council is aware of, and it also states that the application is placed on hold at the applicant's request for 6 months, or if the applicant fails to respond or provide additional information as requested by the city for 6 consecutive months, the application is discontinued, and then would further read that once they move forward with the application, then they have to meet the new rules or whatever rules are in place at the time. That's a piece out there that I don't think has been heavily identified. We are trying, it actually already in session. It's already been applied. It became effective as part of when Session Law 2019-111 was adopted, and 2019-111 was the session law that included 160D. There was two parts to that bill. This was part of this was part A, if you will. The second piece is downzoning. That legislation also identifies that written consent of all property owners whose property is subject of a downzoning amendment application, unless that is city initiated. So all property owners have to agree to that particular downzoning. And a downzoning is a request that decreases the development density or reduces the number of allowed uses. So it's one thing if a neighbor tries to downzone someone's piece of property, and that's real clear. Okay, you need written consent from your neighbor. The one that's not as clear is a text amendment that applies citywide. And let's say somebody wants to remove whatever, a car wash from the RB zoning district. And so that is now reducing the number of uses in that RB zoning district. So now that person has to go get permission from every property owner that's zoned RB before we can accept that application. So that makes it a little different, but that was added in this legislation and we've included it in our ordinance so it's not lost. So we're aware of that. Any questions on that one? Because that could be pretty complicated.
Just gonna have to trust you on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so complicated. I don't know what question I could ask.
I understand, and we have worked with our attorney's office to make sure that we're sound on what we've included in the code, and we actually have used very similar language of what you may or may not be able to see on the screen. But we figured if we use the statute language, we can't get in that much trouble. So.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. This is Sean Evans, and that was one big reason for including it in there. I mean, it's more technical than what we would like to include, but we just didn't want it to be lost since it is state law that we've got to follow.
Right. I just felt like it was two pieces of that legislation that haven't been highlighted to council yet, and I thought it was important for you guys to hear that.
Okay, great.
I didn't want y'all to be surprised, from the development community, say, "Hey, why did y'all put that in there?"
Okay, state law. Okay, got it.
All right. All three of you are aware of our community meeting requirements for conditional districts and special use permits. Currently, the community meeting is required prior to the planning commission meeting for conditional district rezonings and prior to the city council meeting for special use permits. What that allows a developer to do is submit an application for a conditional district rezoning, and then a week or so before the planning commission meeting, hold that community meeting. What we're proposing now is something that's a little more consistent with New Hanover County, and it is going to require that community meeting before an applicant submits an application for that conditional district rezoning or that special use permit. We see that as it is getting the public aware of that particular meeting or that particular development a little ahead of a time. And it is more consistent with what the county is doing already. Another change. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One of the things, all the times I hear folks come to us and say, like, the neighbors didn't get the sign,
Right.
but they didn't know it.
They didn't know.
The signs always posted right at the site where they're going to be doing the change, or what? How do
They are, and I'll get into that in just a second.
Okay.
For commercial, for I got commercial district mixed use now on my mind. Sorry. For conditional zoning district and special use permits, we do require a notice of 300 feet from the boundaries of the property being rezoned. So every property owner within 300 feet is supposed to receive a mailing from identifying, here's the property within 300 feet of you is getting rezoned. Regarding signage, Mr. Barnett, we do post currently signs on the property, subject property, 10 to 12, 13 days prior to the rezoning or the special use permit or whatever the hearing may be. So first time for items that you hear, the first time for rezoning would be the sign would be posted before the planning commission meeting that many days ahead of time.
Okay.
And then we would repost another sign that many days before the council meeting. So the signs are posted.
Okay.
They're required by law. We do post them. But
so the city is responsible for posting the sign.
Right. The change here is that we're proposing to require the applicant to post those signs. We would provide signs for the applicant. We would identify where those signs should be placed, and certainly we would follow up to make sure they've been placed appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, if the sign isn't posted, then it is delayed. It will delay their hearing. So, but we would provide the signage and with instructions. This is where you need to post the sign. This is how many signs you need to post on your property to satisfy the rules. This is how many days you need to post those signs ahead of time. And they get back with us saying this is what they've done. And then we would go verify that. And then we also have some rules that would say you need to take it down within 5 days following your hearing. It is change. Both of these are change of practice that we felt like were needed to be highlighted in the presentation.
Are other cities doing that, making the applicant hang up the signs, or?
Majority don't, but we are aware of a couple. But it is certainly a change of practice. Majority does not do that. Majority post them themselves.
And so are we changing this because it gives our staff more time to do other things? Or
that is part of the reason.
Yeah.
It's part of the reason. We right now have our zoning enforcement staff post their signs for us. They first have to go out and identify where they want to post the signs. They have to notify 811 or you locate to then say, here's where you can post the sign. Then we have to go out and post. We have to use an auger for these large signs that we have. So staff can spend one staff member could spend a good day posting as many signs as we have with depending on the number of cases. But it's not just for planning commission or city council. We have to post those signs for historic preservation commission. We post them for board of adjustment. We post them for subdivision review board, et cetera. So it can be a time consuming thing, which is then preventing our staff from doing other things that are more relevant, we think, to meeting the objectives of the city.
I get why you're doing that, but I could see how it maybe somehow could be taken advantage of in where they post the sign.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
On the property.
We've talked about that at staff level, and that's why we feel like when we give you this, when we would give the applicant their signs, we would say, here's a map. This is where your signs are to be placed. We want on a corner lot. We want one on this street. We want one on that street.
Okay.
And you know, and those kind of things. So, you know, we're trying to address those kind of things. We've had some pretty in-depth conversations at staff level on that, more than you would think, probably.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, Ron, I would say,
Yes.
I mean, the only issue I see more is with date and documentation. Because, I mean, you know, we're wanting to give such and such so many days.
Mhm.
We're doing it so we can tell you this is when it went up. If they're doing it, you know, they send somebody, you know, by there, they don't get it done one day.
Mhm.
Oh, I forgot, I need to go by and do that the next. You know, you just run into a situation where that time span that we're trying to give the surrounding neighbors could be a lot shorter. I mean, just one thought would be, heck, DoorDash, you have to take a picture and email it, text it to the person, tell them it's at their own door.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know why these people, I mean, surely there's some way they can, you know, text, email a photo of it up to document it. I'm trying to think through using some technology to make that, make sure we keep that number of days. It doesn't get shrunk. And
that would be part, in our mind, Councilmember Anderson, is that it would be part of a standard operating procedure and not necessarily a code requirement. If ultimately through this process, if council endorses this and and you would prefer something like that in the code, you know, that's not an issue. But we also feel like there needs to be some standard operating procedures, if you will, the instruction sheets. Part of that instruction in our mind would be, when you post that sign, we need to know when it was posted, and you need to send us photos that it was posted on those days. So that's things, again, we had talked about. We don't have the very details codified because it's not something we feel like should be in a code. We're not opposed to it if ultimately council endorses this process and feels like it's important.
I don't know that it needs to be in the code because who knows, you might want to change it down the road.
That was our thought. Something may work better, and now we gotta go amend the code to implement that process.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So, but we have talked about those kind of things during the development of this.
Okay.
All right. We transition on to specific procedures. As part of the modernization of the code, Article 7 will include flow charts for each specific procedure. The two examples you have, the one on the left-hand corner is for a land development code text amendment, and the one in the middle of the page is for a special use permit. So we would have, we would have a flow chart for each specific procedure outlined in Article 7.
Okay.
Any questions on those?
No, flow charts are good.
Yeah, we agree. We like them too.
Okay.
All right, a couple of changes to our subdivision process, and I touched on the first one last month when during the presentation for subdivisions, Article 6. In that presentation, we introduced the concept of granting the TRC the ability to approve a preliminary subdivision plan that complies with city regulations. So a preliminary subdivision plan is going through the process. It complies with the rules. The technical review committee has the ability to approve that. If it doesn't comply, or there are waivers necessary or desired by the applicant, then they would go through a design adjustment committee, which is similar to our subdivision review board. And I'll go into a little bit more detail with that design adjustment committee in about probably 3 or 4 slides, unless you need more discussion on that one at this time. But we see it, ultimately what staff believes this would streamline the process, and it does not unnecessarily burden an applicant or neighbors in a review process for something that complies with the rules. Ultimately, if a subdivision complies with all development standards, it has to be approved regardless of who the review board is. Whether it's staff, whether it's in a subdivision review board, city council, it has to be approved if it complies with the regulations. So that's the purpose of that. But certainly if there's waivers, they have to go through a quasi-judicial process. So we're not eliminating those.
Okay.
Second one is a little more complex just because of the way that in 2017, when Session Law 2017-10 was written. It introduced a concept called an expedited subdivision. I won't go into the details on what that is unless you want to hear it. I do have the definition of what they are, but it basically means for those type of subdivisions, all we can require is a plat to be reviewed and for recording. We can't make them go through a preliminary plan process. There are some limitations by state statute on what those type of expedited subdivisions are, which it's the entire tract of the parcel is divided is greater than 5 acres. So it can't just be like a little 4-acre subdivision. It has to be a larger tract. Can't be more than 3 lots out of that larger tract, and they still have to have access. They still have other things. But this was introduced to us in 2017 that we have not codified, but we're aware of. And should we get any of those that meet those standards, then we have to just process it per the statute. We felt like this was a good time to go ahead and bring it into the to the code.
Okay, but it's okay by me unless you guys have something to say.
That sounds good.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, transitioning to performance guarantees. Before a developer is allowed to sell a lot in a subdivision, they obviously have to have a final subdivision plat recorded. Before the plat can be recorded, there has to be, we have to make sure that all required improvements are installed, or our code would allow a developer to provide a performance guarantee to the city. Performance guarantees are things like a surety bond, letter of credit, cash, or anything equivalent to that at the developer's choice of what they want to post that assures the city's successful completion of required improvements at the time the final subdivision plat is recorded. So what we're trying to do is, number one, update the language to be consistent with recent legislative changes. We're clarifying what is and what is not subject to the performance guarantee limit. Probably the most significant change is with the asphalt surface course, the top course of asphalt, if you will. Current cap limits in our performance guarantees limit the ability to bond the asphalt surface course, which can be a benefit to the developer and the city if we allow some flexibility in that. Some of you may be aware of how the development works, but asphalt on a street in a subdivision is usually installed in 2 lifts. The first is installed directly over the stone base, and then is almost always installed prior to plat or surety. The top course is the finish piece, if you will. Ideally, cities and engineering had a lot of input on this. Ideally, we want a contractor to post this performance guarantee for the surface course of asphalt, or the top course. And once that subdivision is about 75 to 80% built out, the top course can be installed, as well as any pavement markings. Because what you don't want is have that top course put in at the beginning of the subdivision, and then all the construction traffic get into the back or building the homes, you know, delivering the wood and the brick and whatever else for the homes, and then it tears up the road.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is protect the city's interests, and also allow some flexibility in when those lots are subdivided. So we see that as a good thing with our code. We are going to lower the amount what our current code has, but in exchange, though, we are going to exempt certain improvements, such as that top course of asphalt, or some sidewalk, or street trees, from that cap limit. They can still post a surety for those, and we want them to post a surety, but they don't have to be worried about that $20,000 cap.
Just to make sure, maybe I don't understand this, but in those subdivisions, generally they're building it really as a private road, and then later we accept it if it's built to city standards.
Correct. But what we want is the developer to go ahead and start selling lots. So that's the real purpose of that guarantee, is that in the event the developer walks away, we can go in there and we have the ability to go make sure that the owner can have access to their site, or they have drainage, they have curb and gutter, they have that sidewalk or whatever. So
I'm not sure why the city has responsibility for that, but if we need to.
if we allow the surety to be posted, we have that responsibility. Thomas, were you going to jump in, Tom?
Yeah, I was just simply say that sometimes you'll have a developer that will market forces may actually go out of business, and when they do, they would have done almost all the work. The surety allows you to be assured that whatever work is not completed, particularly like as was said about the final course of asphalt, that the city has the funds necessary to complete the roadway. And you typically would see that where lots have been sold and developed, but the total subdivision hasn't been built out. And as council members, you would get a lot of complaints from citizens who said, I'm paying taxes, why don't you finish my road?
Okay.
That's an example from personal experience, professional experience, I should say.
Right.
Okay.
It's not a comfortable situation when that happens either.
All right.
So just a quick question. So presently, what they do now is they put the first coat and the second coat of asphalt on before they complete the project?
That is why the current process is currently works. Both that top coat would go on as well before, or as part of that surety that can be we have right now a $40,000 cap. So they would have to work within the confines of that for that top coat. It just doesn't go very far.
Okay.
And engineering, our city staff, engineering, we don't want, because the examples here, I didn't really go into a lot of detail. This was just more pictures. This bottom right-hand corner is, you see the alligator cracking. This was about 2 years after that road was installed, or that top coat was installed. The top picture here is a water valve issue. That's, you kind of see it. So we want that top coat to come in, make sure that's fixed. We can use a surety for that. And then this is just what typical activity you'll see on a subdivision. This is a dumpster. This is a bunch of debris and dirt laying around. You see the sidewalk kind of ends just before it gets there. You'll see the dumpster even appears to be partially on the curb
Right.
there. So we're trying to make sure that if there's surety would cover fixing all that stuff.
Well, did you say you're going to reduce the amount of the surety?
We're going to reduce it, but we're also going to exempt some things from it. So like that top coat of asphalt I kept talking about, there would be no cap on that. They could still post a surety, but there's no cap on it like there is today. They still have to put it in, and would be before the street is accepted, but they could go ahead and get the lots recorded.
Ron and Glenn, if I remember correctly, the development community really advocated that they be enabled to have more flexibility with putting place sureties. And so this is partially what they're wanting to do. And the risk is always to the jurisdiction. And so usually the way you manage the risk by limiting what can be surety, and then letters of credit, bond, you name it, those kinds of tools. And you also limit the dollar amount. And the development community, if you listen to them, would say, well, I should be able to bond or put a letter of credit up for any facet of it. And so there's a balance that you're trying to accomplish in this process.
Right. Things like the curb and gutter, the stone base, the first level of asphalt, pretty much those would be capped at that 20,000, which means you're going to get the majority of that put in. The drainage systems, the water and sewer lines, all those kind of things, they're pretty much going to be put in. So what is left are the cosmetics, like the pavement markings, that last level of asphalt, street trees, some sidewalks, and that kind of thing. So it may, I did say we were lowering the amount, but we see it as a win-win, that we're providing some flexibility, but we also are establishing some limitations as well.
But
we
still have the hammer about the trees and the sidewalks and all of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You may recall in the Great Recession, you may remember reading the Star News about the zombie subdivisions, particularly in Brunswick County, where exactly what Mr. Moten was referring to, developer walked away for whatever reason, and then Brunswick County was stuck with a large surety amount after lots had been sold, but no infrastructure had been put in.
Yeah, that was that Mark Sanders stuff.
That was one of them, but there were several in Brunswick County, and our code has never done that, and we don't want to get there either. But we do recognize that some flexibility is in order, and we feel like this is a good, I wouldn't even use the word compromise. We believe this is a good win-win for both situations.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. All right. This one, moving forward to historic preservation, 90-day stay in demolition and no expiration of demolition certificates of appropriateness. The first change is to reduce the number of, the Historic Preservation Commission may not deny the demolition of a designated landmark or a building that is within a local historic district, which are our zoning of HD, HDR, HDMU, or HDO. So ultimately, if a property owner wants to demolish a house that is zoned HDR, the Historic Preservation Commission has to allow it. They can put up to a maximum 365-day stay of demolition on that application, but they cannot say, no, we're just not going to let you demolish it. And that is set in our our state statutes.
Yeah, I was going to say that's state law.
Right, it is. So to clarify that the city can only place a maximum delay of 1 year or 365 days, then we're proposing to draft the language in this article that would state that the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition has no expiration date, because we also don't think it means the city can get 2, 3, 4, 5 bites of the apple either. So right now our code would say that certificate of appropriateness expires after 1 year. Well, that's the whole life of that certificate, of that stay. So the developer comes on day 380 or 390 or day 410. We don't want the impression that, okay, well, you didn't get it within that, you didn't come get it that exact 1 year later. So therefore you got to go back through the whole process again, and the HPC is going to put another 1 year on it, because we do not believe that's what the intent of that legislation is. Legislation says a maximum, and you can't really see it here, but it says date of such may be delayed for a period of up to 365 days. So we wanted to make it clear that that's the maximum that the city can put a delay of demolition on. Also during that time frame, the Historic Preservation Commission and staff is supposed to be working with that applicant or that property owner on what to do to preserve that building. The second change would be to eliminate from our current code a provision that allows the HPC to delay demolition for up to 90 days of a building in a National Register of Historic Places, but not within a local district. We're proposing to eliminate that because we don't believe we're authorized by the state statutes to do that. That's not what this code says. Excuse me, that's not what the general statutes say. The general statutes say within a local district, you can put up to a 365-day stay. A National Register is not a local district.
Okay, give us an example of that.
All right, 2 houses at top. This one's 624 South 4th Street. It's not in a local district, but it's in a National Register. HPC put a 90-day stay of demolition on that. It was demolished after 90 days, but they put a stay of demolition. What we're saying is that the state statutes don't allow the city to place that stay of demolition on that. So we're proposing to cut it out of the code, eliminate it from the code.
You know, that seems contrary to common sense, that if it's on the National Historic Register, that it would be a more significant structure than if it's just, you know, locally we've said, okay, you're in whatever, the historic whatever, or overlay, or whatever, residential, whatever it is.
It's, and Christine can certainly explain it better than me, so I don't know if she's listening or not, but, and Christine, chime in if you want. The National Register is really is governed by the Department of Interior, National Park Standards, basically.
Right.
And they're saying that, go ahead, jump in.
It's a listing in the Federal Register, and unfortunately, it's really just an honorary designation. It doesn't carry any regulatory authority with it. No real incentives, and also no real disincentives. It does make certain properties eligible for tax credits, which is definitely an incentive for an individual property owner. But from the regulatory perspective, it doesn't offer any controls.
Right.
Okay. I didn't understand that.
Right. Yeah.
And
Only the local
people don't, which I think why what Ron is suggesting in the code here is pretty important.
I'd like to add something too. I think sometimes people may be mixing up a large area of our city that's in the National Register District and specific sites that are historic landmarks. So, I mean, this house that Ron's pointing to in the upper left-hand corner is clearly within that National Register area, but it's not a national landmark or you know, a historic landmark, I should say.
So again, bottom line is, committee, is that we really don't think we're even authorized to do what our code currently says. So we're proposing to remove it from the code.
I think you're going to get some pushback
We
from
understand.
the public on that because they're like me. They don't understand what Christine just told us.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree that, and we figured we would get some pushback maybe even Monday morning or some questions Monday morning about it. So
Okay.
totally understand. All right, move on.
Yes.
I introduced this article saying really it sounded like a mundane and kind of drab article, but there's a lot of things punched, a lot of things included in here, really, I think. So boards and commissions, the first change that we're proposing is to change the composition from our HPC by reducing it from 9 members to 7 members. State law requires that the majority of the historic preservation members have a demonstrated special interest, experience, or education in history, architecture, archaeology, or a related field. So that means we have 9 members. That means 5 of those 9 members have to have a demonstrated interest, experience, or education in those things I've just read off. We're a limited, and Ms. Haynes, I know you serve on the appointments committee, or you have served on the appointments committee for years. Finding qualified people in the historic serving on the HPC has been difficult.
It's very difficult, and they often don't have a quorum because of that.
Well, I went back just to a couple things. So first of all, we're proposing to change it from 9 to 7. We understand this may be another topic for discussion, either Monday morning or as we go through this process. But we believe reducing the membership to 7 certainly makes it easier to find qualified members, because if you have 7 members, now you have to have 4 that have that demonstrated experience, education, et cetera. But we also believe it makes the board size a little more manageable. Think about the planning commission. We have 7 members citywide for roughly 53 square miles of a city. The historic districts themselves, if you look at the HD, HDR, HDMU, and the historic district overlay, is 0.75 square miles. So it's not even 1 square mile in size. So their area of interest of, I don't want to say interest of concern, but the area of their focus, if you will, on issuing certificates of appropriateness is much more narrow than what the planning commission is when they're making a recommendation to you. Our board of adjustment has 5 members, and again, they're a citywide board.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost say 5 members with 2 alternates.
Right. Well, we can look at that. Then we did put like the minimum required by the state law is 3, because the majority has to have that special interest or education or experience, and so you have to have at least 3 to have a majority. Is that clear as mud?
No, it's good. I get it. I think they have too much power as is, so I don't care. You know, it doesn't matter how many are on there, but they're having a tough time because it's a lot of older people are on there, and you know, their health issues and attendance issues. And
well, I did go back to and just through the 2 meetings we had in the month for 2020, and then all of the calendar for 2019, so 15 meetings, if you will. Only 2 times did we have all 9 members there.
Yeah.
There were 10 times we had 7 or 8 combined, you know, either 7 or 8, 5 apiece actually. But only 2 times did we have all 9 members there. So I do think their attendance has been a little better than what you can recall from probably 2-3 years ago. But we have, well, I see that you may be making some recommendations on Tuesday I saw that today on the agenda for 1 member. And I understand there's another member now that has resigned and has put their notice of resignation. So yes.
Really? Oh dear.
Yes.
Because we only had that one application
Right.
from the guy that's an architect. So
Right. I may be premature on saying that, but my understanding that's their interest anyway is to resign. So I don't know if Penny's actually received that or not.
okay. It's tough. That's our hardest thing. And the appointments committee doesn't know where if they're qualified for this other group, you know, so then that has to go to staff and staff has to figure it out and all of that.
Right.
So,
Right. It's a big deal.
May I ask a question, Mayor Pro Tem Haynes?
sure.
My experience with HPC submissions, in other organizations I've been a part of, the person submitting appointment to it, that you ask in advance what are their experiences, particularly in those areas, and so you can do that on the front end. It's not being done.
We've tried to get people that we knew had some experience, but the reality is most of the people that apply are just residents that have either renovated a house and have experience with going through the process or whatever. So that qualifies them with this special interest. And people outside of those areas really don't care, much anyway. So,
Okay, I understand.
you know, it hasn't been an issue that I know of because everybody comes under the special interest deal.
Because you can say they bought in the historic district, so therefore they have that special interest.
Yeah.
That's their demonstrated special interest. Yeah. Yeah. And I know that our current preservation planner, Dawn, she actually has reached out. We have, I can see sometimes like applications for other boards and commissions and hey, here's so-and-so apply for the planning commission. Let's see if they may be interested on the Historic Preservation Commission, and she'll call them and nah, we're not interested. No. So we do try, and we're supposed to actively pursue members on that.
Yeah, we're forever trying to move people around that show any interest in anything.
Right. Right. So that's a proposal of ours, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
All right. Another boards and commission change is the Design Adjustment Committee. I've touched on that briefly already. This committee, in essence, will replace the Subdivision Review Board. Its role was to review major deviations from the city's technical standards, building design materials, and hear waivers needing design during the approval of a preliminary subdivision plan. So, and that picture on the bottom is just was a major subdivision that went through the SRB, and they had like 8 or 10 waivers necessary, and they have to act in a quasi-judicial manner like you do for special use permits.
This DAC, this Design Adjustment Committee.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, they do. Subdivision Review Board does as well. The members that we would propose, I believe Councilmember Rivenbark asked the question last month, but we're looking at someone from planning would be served on there, our city engineer, traffic engineer, our fire department, and our Cape Fear Public Utilities Authority would maintain a seat.
Okay, because these things with these citizen boards, we have to get people that are willing to have some training and be more qualified to make some of these important quasi-judicial decisions.
Right. Mm-hmm. And with staff, we can make sure that they're educated and trained. Not that we can't with the citizens, but we can certainly work with our staff, appointed board members, to make sure they fully understand what the rules and regulations and what their responsibilities are. We have access to them all the time, basically. Not that we talk specifics, but it's, hey, remember, if you do this, then you need to make a decision based on this kind of thing. So,
right.
Ongoing conversation.
Well, legal can give them that little book they gave all of us about quasi-judicial things and kind of go over it with them.
Exactly. And several of our SRB members, which we see as a carryover, basically, have attended some of the local trainings that the School of Government has done as well. And I think they do a good job ultimately doing what they're supposed to do.
How many people are on that committee?
Councilmember Barnett, we would propose 5. Again, it would be someone from planning, our city engineer, our traffic engineer, someone from the fire department appointed by the fire chief, and then someone from Utilities Authority.
So basically professionals.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, let's keep going. It's after 5 o'clock.
I'm trying. This was a lot. This whole article was about 82 pages, so I'm trying to narrow it down as much as I can. Regarding nonconformities, the major change proposed here was to eliminate some very complicated and complex code language regarding public action nonconformities. That would be, let's say, the example here in the picture, the Department of Transportation is taking a little bit of property here, the top piece here for a road widening project. That particular code language had good intentions, but it's been, every time we read it, we come in with a different interpretation of what it means and what it says. And that's not how code should work, to be honest with you. And we've not run into issues with it. We're not saying that because the city or the DOT or whoever taking the project takes that corner of your property there that now your property is rendered non-developable, or you can't, you have to close your business or anything. We're just saying you continue doing what you're doing on it. The current code language is very, like I say, very complex. It talks about if the nonconformity was rendered more than like 75% of the max of the dimension standards, then this occurs and that kind of thing. We just scratch our heads every time we read it and say, what does it mean? So we're just proposing to eliminate that. And ultimately somebody wants to develop on the site and they need to get through the Board of Adjustment process based on the taking of that property, then that's what happens.
Well, what if you're running a business and DOT comes along and they take it, and so now the traffic is only 15 feet from your door?
Mm-hmm. That's part of the negotiation with you as the property owner with the DOT when they make that, and it is currently now as well. We can't tell DOT that you can't take that property because of this code provision. It's just part of the negotiation of the price between the property owner and the DOT. But they can continue in business. I understand exactly what you're saying. Now the front door opens up to the traffic. They had nice landscaping up front. Now they don't have it.
Or maybe their parking lot had 20 spaces and now they have 3.
Right.
They can still operate.
They can still do it. And what happens in those situations? Our zoning administrator actually will get contacted by either an appraiser of DOT, an appraiser of the property owner. What will this do, kind of thing. And so she will say, this will be non-conforming because such and such. But we can't say that DOT, sorry, or city, sorry, you can't take that property because you've made it a piece of property that's smaller than the code.
Oh yeah, I mean, I understand that completely. We can't do anything with DOT. I'm just wondering how, if safety or anything, health and safety doesn't weigh in there somewhere.
I'm sure it does somewhere during the appraisal and the purchase, the purchase of the property. If they end up with only 3 spaces, and I think the business can show that they can't make a viable use of the business, then that's something that their appraiser will work out with the DOT appraiser.
Well, what if they take the $1 million from the DOT, and yet then their door opens, within 15 feet of the street, and they, instead of their 20 parking spaces, they have 3. We're going to let them continue to operate? We would have to let them continue to operate. Whether we eliminate this from our code or not, we would continue to let them operate.
That's a good question, Mayor Pro Tem Haynes. That happened in Pitt County with a landmark institution called Bee's Barbecue. Mm-hmm. The state widened the road to the hospital, and it essentially left the curb about 20 feet from their front door. Restaurant, and it was able to continue because they're protected. You can't just close them because they no longer meet your standards. So that's not uncommon.
Okay. Just seems like they take the money.
They took the money and they thought, well, we'll try to keep it going. But the reality of it is, after a while, the market that used to cater that business found it difficult and cumbersome to make it, and it eventually closed.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
These is good. The other one is just we're removing some language now regarding amortization of non-conforming signs that is no longer needed. Like billboards, once we amended our billboards code a few years ago, this language is still in our sign code, then it's no longer needed. So we're just making sure, eliminating language that's not necessary.
So they're all gone. That amortization timed out.
Correct. And we're not doing any city initiated annexations either, with the way that the state laws change. So we don't really see the purpose.
Well, how about voluntary annexations?
Our policy right now, and of course, the policy can change, would require that to come in with a conditional district zoning. So then we can negotiate what they do then.
Sign wise, I mean, I get it that it's everything, lighting, sign, what, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So we could say, look, you've got this huge electronic sign here, and that's not allowed in the city limits. And they say, then we're not going to come in, and you're not going to get the tax money from us.
My guess is that property owner, the billboard owner, will probably show they have some property right interest. And so they may even have to be part of the annexation signatory at the end of the day. So, so maybe we just don't bring them in, or we decide to bring them in with a billboard, or we say, amortize after 5 years or whatever.
Well, yeah, that's why I don't know about taking it out completely, if not reworking it about something. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
I understand. No, and we've tossed it around ourselves to what's the right thing to do. Part of what we're trying to do is identify code language that is not being used anymore. As we're trying to modernize our code and rewrite our code language, and this is something that we don't use anymore. So that's why we have it.
Should we say in the current city limits or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, we can look at the language again. That's the purpose of these meetings and the stakeholder process afterwards. This is great feedback, though. I appreciate it. All right, administration, violations, and enforcement. Probably the most significant change we're proposing here is to treat each sign as a separate zoning offense instead of just the property as one zoning offense. So the example picture on the top right-hand side, I believe there's, counted correctly, I think there's 8 or 9 of those red mattress sale signs, mattress sale today signs in the right-of-way. Our staff would pull those signs because they're in the right of way, and we would then send them one violation. The code would then allow up to 8 or 9 violations for that because of the numbers. And then if they continue, then we could treat them as each individual violation. I believe it just brings a little more teeth, and hopefully we'll get a little more oomph for folks to want to help clean our rights of way, keep our rights of way clean.
I thought there was a thing about signs, and it didn't matter what they said, that they're like on state roads, you can't fool with them or something. There was a court case a few years ago, Reed versus Gilbert, Supreme Court case. If you got to read the sign to know what type of sign it is, then you can't regulate it that way. But these are signs in the right of way. The example here are signs in the right of way. So we can pull a sign in the right of way, except for certain times around the political season. Okay. Gotcha.
There's like a window 30 days before, 30 days after, or 60 days before, 30 days after. I forget. Catherine knows those numbers by heart. I forget them.
Right. Gotcha.
And so you're saying that each sign would be there'd be a fee for each sign.
Right. We would say each one of these is a violation. It's saying there's one violation for the whole property. We would say there's 8 or however many signs there's like 8 or 9 is a violation.
What's the fee? What would is there?
Yeah. It's currently $100 for the first day and $200 for every other day that the violation exists. So if we have 8 signs, that's $800 plus $200 plus then 16 for the first day, and then $1,600 for each day.
Well, so that would be if they put them back out there.
If we go out there again and see them, Catherine is working with a lot of our businesses that are repeat offenders. I'll say, well, I won't say repeat offenders, but who constantly will, as soon as they know the enforcement staff went through there, 2-3 days later, they're putting more signs out.
Right.
And it's more of a game in the cost of business. If they're getting just $100, it's worth $100 just put the sign out there.
Right. I got it.
So when you pull those signs up the first time, it's going to cost that guy $900.
Not the first time. We will send them a violation, but not a citation. The citation is where the money hits. The violation will say, hey, you put those signs out.
Don't do it again.
Right.
Okay.
And we're actually trying to figure out some ways to, as we move forward the next fiscal year, to be a little more education oriented with our businesses. Hey, I bet you didn't know that you couldn't put those signs out there. Hey, I'll be back about 3 days from now. Make sure the signs are there. If we see them again after that, then we'll start the enforcement proceedings.
Yeah, we need a handout.
Right. So we're Catherine and I have talked about that last week or so about trying to be a little more proactive and educate and customer oriented with educational components.
Could they put those signs more closer to the sidewalk? Could they put it further away from the street? Would that work?
Well, all of that's pretty much the right of way. So everything you see in that green area from the curb to the sidewalk is the right of way. If they start putting it over here while it's on property, the business's property, then you start looking at the number of signs that they're allowed to have on that property and the location, size, and that kind of thing. So we'll be rewriting the whole sign ordinance.
Can't see them.
Right. We're going to be rewriting the whole sign ordinance in the zoning ordinance too. So that'll be an interesting piece.
I'll say.
All right. I think I'm almost done. What's not changing? We're not proposing any changes to our notice requirements. Majority of our processes will stay the same. I've gone over the couple that we believe are changing, and pretty much our outside of the HPC and the Design Adjustment Committee, our boards and commissions would stay the same. As we move forward, this slide shows that this is our dedicated webpage for the Land Development Code project. This circle here, when Article 7 is released to the public, likely on Tuesday sometime after following our agenda briefing conversation, and then we'll take about a day or so to get everything out. You'll see a bullet added in this circle between Article 6 and Article 8 that will say Article 7 administrative provisions, as well as on the left-hand side, you'll see a tab there that people can click to Article 7. So each time that it's updated, each article gets its own dedicated page in which the public can then provide comments just on that particular article.
Can you tell if people have been looking at this or
Yes.
if you can?
We've gotten probably 20 to 30 comments from the forum, from using the form that we have on this website. And then we're also gotten a handful of emails from some email blast that goes out to let the public know that we put this out there. So I think, I want to say we have 15 or 20 for Article 2, which was presented to the Planning Commission on Wednesday in a work session. So they're starting to get out.
In the general public, not people just like us or.
No, general public. We've gotten, some comments from base or some organization, Sierra Club, some more you would expect to get them from, but we've also got just from, hey, I've never worked with a land development code before and I really know what it was about. I think what you guys are doing is pretty good. It was easy to follow. It was very user friendly, that kind of thing. So.
Okay, cool.
I'll add something to that too, Ron, that
Sure.
Whenever we get a comment from a citizen for any reason, by any means, whether it be by email or through the website, we are calling those people back or sending them a personal email responding to their questions, their concerns, their suggestions. So it's kind of a substitute for what we were going to do was going to be some extended office hours. But obviously we're not doing extended office hours right now by any means. So instead of spending that time, 3 hours a month, staying afterwards in the office to meet with people, we're using those contacts that we're getting from individuals as an opportunity to talk to them personally or to email them personally, depending on how they communicate with us. And as Ron said, we've gotten very positive results. Most people that have a conversation with staff and have specific questions, a typical response is, I had no idea the city was doing that. Keep up the good work. So it's gratifying.
Good.
I agree.
Good.
All right. And the schedule may be adjusted, but right now I put on this slide that based on the previous schedule we've had, the Planning Commission would have this in a work session in July, but I think Glenn and our planning coordinator right now are trying to work with our Planning Commission members to adjust our schedule. So that date's likely not going to stand.
Yeah, we lost 2 work sessions of the Planning Commission in April. So that's going to affect the scheduling. Instead of having 6 weeks to review the materials after they've been put on the website. Now people will have more likely 8 weeks unless we can do some catching up.
We're trying to get back on schedule.
Yeah, as long as we're talking about schedule too, I've made a note that our next meeting will be Friday, June the 12th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'll quickly get that word.
Okay, yes, something just came through from Tracy about canceling the 3:30, so.
Yeah, good. Tracy's on top of things.
Friday, you said June the 12th? Okay.
Yeah, that would be the second Friday before the second.
You got it. I got it.
week.
Okay, good.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys are working hard, so it's a lot to take in.
Yep. In June, if you're interested, what we will be hearing is Article 4, which are environmental regulations. It'll include floodplain, conservation resource, stormwater, and exceptionally designed projects. We're overhauling at least 2 of those 4. Floodplain will pretty much stay like it is because we just amended that 2 years ago.
All right.
Docks and piers last year too, so we don't have to worry about revisiting docks and piers.
Okay. Now, one question. Glenn, did you say that meeting is at 12 o'clock or did we say 1 o'clock?
1.
1. Okay, cool. All right. Awesome. Got it done.
Okay. Are we done?
We're done. I'm done. Unless you guys have questions.
Anybody else have any questions or concerns?
Appreciate y'all.
thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
After 5 o'clock somewhere.
Hey, Mayor Pro Tem Haynes, Councilmember Barnett, and Councilmember Anderson, thank you very much for being very generous with your time. I know we went over today. It's a lot of information. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. And if staff would just stay on the line for just a couple minutes, please.
All right, Tom, I believe we're still being recorded if we stay on the line, so just want to keep that in mind.
Okay, we'll keep it short and sweet.
All right.
Thank you.
Hearing no new business, we stand adjourned.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you very much.
much. You guys have a good weekend.
Thanks,
Be
guys.
safe.
Looks like a nice one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hey, Ron and Glenn and Sean, what are your thoughts about our ability Monday morning to work through all this material? This is just a group of 3. And so you think we'll have, yeah, I mean, should we do part A, break it up? And council is going to have a number of smaller meetings to handle some plan commission items. And a couple of those are in the mornings. Do you want to kind of figure out a natural break? Or just based on what we're seeing today, I'd hate to irritate and frustrate them and then end up being there with 2 other presentations, with 3, Bijou Park, Wrightsville Avenue, and 17th and Dawson. This is the highest priority, but I don't know that they're going to be prepared to maybe an hour and a half.
I'm good either way, Mr. Moten. And if you want to push this meeting or this presentation to one of the same meetings that we're just hearing planning commission items.
Now I'm thinking is there a good division, a breakup, or at least be ready. I'm not saying change anything, but we may want to be ready and volunteer on the front end. That it's a lot of information. We went through it with the ad hoc group, got a lot of good feedback. Approximately about an hour and a half, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Really about, yeah. And so in light of that, let's just see what their appetite is. And you may want to be prepared to have, where would you want to break if they were to choose to break at some point in time?
I would just looking at the conversation we had today, I'm thinking the subdivision bullet.
Okay.
For specific procedures. I can finish the subdivision bullet, but that includes the performance guarantees.
Okay.
It would also include the required neighborhood meeting and the signs posted by the applicant.
That was pretty far through the process, wasn't it? That was probably over an hour. Was that an hour mark then? Or it's on page 2 of my notes. Let's see. Surety, subdivision process changes. I'm at page 1.5 at that point. Now, I wasn't writing down everything.
Right. And I was generalizing my comments of what I heard them say, because but
Glenn, are you going to present or make a presentation on the first part of today's meeting on Monday?
No, I wasn't planning on it unless I get direction otherwise.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If that was
So-
taken out, it might, I agree with you completely, Tom, that it still might be too much for one meeting, but Ron might be able to push through it a fair piece. And then when people are losing energy and it's time to move on, we can do the rest of it at one of the extra meetings.
And I'll be doing it remotely, Tom, so I don't know if that factors in anything. So
Okay.
I'm good.
No,
either way.
no, it'll be okay. I just want us to be ready. And if you look at your body of material, I think the LDC is going to go first, but what happens is it becomes a little bit of mild
Right.
irritation. And so it's a lot of information, but we're going to have in June, I think, 4 extra meetings to cover plan commission items. And it could be simply us asking them for 30 minutes time. We don't have to decide right now, but I'd hate to not think about it over the weekend. We don't have a whole lot of time, and I'll talk to Sterling about this in a little bit. But I think it's important. It's important work. And it may be that after talk to Sterling, maybe we carry something else.
Yeah,
So,
I could also stop after the general applicable procedures.
maybe, is there a way that you could create something that would be even more concise? If for one, it may help that we get the slides in advance. I could send it to them to have them early to look at it. Your slideshow.
Sure. I mean, I can send you a slideshow as it is.
Yeah, if you send the slideshow as it is, at least you won't be investing as much time helping them familiarize themselves with where the information is,
Right.
potentially. And it just may help a little bit.
I can certainly send whatever you want me to send you, slide presentation. If we're talking about like amending the 1-page summary flyer to
No.
identify what we're talking, that's a bigger deal.
What I would do is just say on this right here, your slide presentation, if I call it draft that was reviewed with the LDC rollout group, I just would send it to them in advance and call it advanced copy. You may have interest in previewing. It's a lot of, I may even prepare them. So we covered a significant amount of territory and anything so that may be a way to help.
Okay. So you may send it to you with a draft on it?
Yeah, that'd be good. And I'd forgotten about Glenn going first. So really it hadn't been as long as I thought it had been, but it's still a fair amount of information.
Yeah, I want to think that it was probably around 4:10, 4:12 when he finished here.
Okay. So you were about an hour.
Right. Which is still a lot of time.
Minutes.
But
Yeah.
it's a lot of stuff on this one.
Yeah. Good job. I should have started with the good news first. But I was going to the concerns. Ron, that was a phenomenal job. I want to commend you for making something that complex be understandable, comprehensible.
It was a good team effort.
Ron, Glenn, Christine, all of you, Sean, tremendous job.
A lot of input from everybody. So it is a lot of work getting these slide presentations prepared.
Yes, it is. So if you'll send it to me, I'll send it out. And I'll just let Sterling know, and I may recommend to him that one of our other presentations get carried over later. This is our big focus as an organization.
Sure. I'll be ready Monday morning.
Okay.
So, as we're speaking right now, anyway.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Have a great weekend.
You too,
All right,
Tom.
same. Thanks, Ron. Thanks.
All right.
Appreciate the feedback, everybody.
Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.